Hey, welcome back to the studio today. I'm sure like me, like you, like everybody else, we come across quilting patterns that we really fall in love with, but for one reason or another, we may be intimidated or we just don't want to do that particular project because of one of the processes in the quilt. And that was the case with this particular quilt. It's called Ombre Blossom, and the reason I really loved the fabric line and I loved the pattern, but it had Y seams in it, and I know how to do Y seams, but I didn't want to. So I had actually bought all the fabric for this before I'd ever seen any patterns. Every time I saw fabric in this collection, I would just buy a yard and put it in my stash. So I had like a lot, maybe 12 or 15 yards of these fabrics in different colors before I ever saw a pattern. And then when I saw the pattern, I thought, well, I've already got the fabric, and this is a really great pattern. So I decided I was going to go ahead and try it, and I bought the pattern. And then after I looked at the pattern, I couldn't even figure it out, and that was probably just because that wasn't the day for it. But the instructions that day didn't make any sense to me, and I think it was because I was imagining how it was supposed to go together based on what the picture was, and it was much simpler than that. I was overthinking it. I was making it more complicated. So I put it away for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. And then one day I pulled it back out because I really love this fabric and I really love the pattern. And I did 2 things. One thing was I emailed the designer, Krista Mosler, and I just asked her if she wanted to collaborate on the video, if I did a video. And basically what I kind of wanted her to do, because she's done a video on this quilt on her page, and she quilted in the ditch. But we're a panto company, and so I just wanted to see if she would be interested in looking at our pantos and seeing if she found something in our designs that she thought would complement the pattern. But I haven't heard back from her at the date of the recording. But that's understandable because small business owners, pattern designers are very busy, especially this time of year. The quilt shows, market, and festival just keep coming up one after the other, back to back. So that's no harm, no foul on that. But I finally got the pattern all complete. Well, I also had to make it more complicated than it was supposed to be. The size of this was going to be one thing, and I wanted it to be another. I don't think I can find the size real quick on this. I wanted it to be wider and taller. So taller wasn't so bad, I just had to make another row. That was fairly easy. Wider was a little bit harder because they're not really blocks, they're units. And figuring out how to make a color unit took a little bit more time. It seems like it's pretty simple once you see it, but I had to make a couple mistakes in the coloring before I figured out really what was going on. I had to do it wrong before I could do it right. But I did get it bigger, and I also added a border. This fabric line, ombre, I forget, it's ombre dots, I don't think that's the name of it, but it also has a backing fabric, and I wanted the ombre fabric on the front, but I didn't realize when I had that idea that the backing fabric didn't have any gold on it the way all the front did, so I painted dots on it. So I added the border, and I like the border, but also I will tell you, the original quilt had like 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches finished border on the sides, and I can't imagine ever wanting to have an 1-inch finish border on the edge of my quilt. I just can't imagine not distorting that as I'm trying to quilt that. It just seems like it would distort so easy in my mind. So what is the point of this video? The point of the video is basically what I was going to get her collaboration. I keep looking at different quilting patterns and nothing's stuck yet. I contacted all the girls at the office because I love harassing them, and they all sent me, I sent them pictures of the quilt, and they all sent me some of their ideas, and they had some great ideas. But I had something specific in mind. This is a very geometric quilt. So normally on geometrics I would go floral or curved. I do that all the time. And I just couldn't imagine putting something like floral or feathers on this. It just didn't seem right. So I was seeing something specific in my head, and I got several ideas from the girls at the office, the ladies at the office, the supreme goddesses at the office. But I just wasn't hooked on anything. Some of them, when I was looking at them on the website, would prompt me to see other things on that same page. And so it was a little bit of a rabbit hole. And I did end up buying 4 or 5 new patterns that I liked at the time. But then after I got back out and looked at the quilt again, I was like, I still am not sure. And right as I stand here, I am still not sure. I have the backing on the frame. I have the batting on the frame. And I'm going to get the top on the frame. So I have to decide, because I've got a lot going on. We're a few weeks before Christmas. And you know for yourself, just like me, just like you, you cannot be goofing around, tying up your quilting frame, trying to hem-haul, making some crazy decision about what to do. You have to be decisive and move on. So basically we're going to be talking about making decisions about quilting patterns. How do you decide? And you know, there's lots of room in the comments section on all of these different applications, Facebook, YouTube. Just message in and say, hey, I would have used this pattern. You all know the patterns on the Urban Elements website. Tell me what you would have done on here. Anyway, I really want to get it done. 1, because I really love it. 2, because I love to take things into the show and tell at my local guild. My bestie, Marguerite, and I always like to bring in really pretty quilts and show them, and they always make us show our stuff last. No one wants to show their stuff after us. But I'm really excited. I want to take it in for the next show, and we only have a couple weeks for that. And Marguerite said she needs a week to bind it, so I've got to get busy. So I'm putting it on the frame, and I've got to decide tonight, before tomorrow. I have to decide what quilting design is going to go on there. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of how these decisions are made and some of the different ways that a person can use to make these decisions. And so let's see where that gets us. Another tool that quilters have who own some kind of computerized system or any other design program would be opening up the quilting designs that they have on that program. So I'm going to show you just a couple. I'm going to choose Design So Quilt, Start New. This is the process that I would go through if I were going to actually open a quilting design for the quilt on the machine. So I'm just punching in a theoretical size of the quilt, and this is a representation of the quilt up here, 98 inches square, and I'm just going to choose one of the ones that Patricia had mentioned. Wasn't necessarily her favorite choice, but it was one that she had mentioned. Let's see. So this is Papyrus, and of course you have to go through and correct the spacing on it, and then go back and correct the height. So that just gives you a kind of an idea of what that one looks like. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple other ones. One of the ones that somebody mentioned was Euphoria. That's this one here. Again, we'll change the gap on there, bring those together. You can see this is a very textural design. This would add a lot of texture and a lot of density. Still doesn't give me what I'm looking for. I don't think I want anything that heavily patterned for this particular project. Another one, this particular one is one that Mel mentioned to me, and at first off I didn't like this one at all. I just didn't feel like it did any of the things that I wanted it to do. And let's see if we go here to true size. This would be about the size that it would actually stitch out. That's a great thing about the IQ. You could hit the true size and see what the actual sizing would be at the height you've designated. And I'm going to show you one other one that I had picked out. I was pretty sure that I was going to use this one. It's called Jessica's Vidalia. It's like a Vidalia onion. And let's change the gap on this one as well. Get these typewriter lines to disappear. And I don't really remember what size this was supposed to be, so I'm just going to guess. And we could go ahead and choose true size on here also. But you can see from here it doesn't look that dense, but when you don't have your zoom on, it's actually much denser looking. Again, I thought this is what I was going to want, but after I looked at it, it was very linear, or I should say horizontal, no, vertical. It's very vertical looking, and I wanted something that matched the pattern of the quilt, which was sort of multi-directional. That was the thing that after I looked at the pattern very closely with some of these that I had picked out, was what I was noticing was missing. I wanted a multi-directional pattern, and many of the things that I had been looking at were either very vertical or very horizontal, but they weren't multi-directional. A couple things that I didn't think about when I was thinking about my numbers of things I was going to talk about. One of the things when you buy designs from Urban Elements is you get a PDF with the design, and this is what the PDFs look like, and I can show you a couple of these up close. Some of these are ones that I looked at also. I didn't show you all the things that went through our collective mind, and some of the ones I did choose one, but they will help illustrate the point, so I'll pull the camera in and show you those. But also there was one other thing that I remembered when we did the shows in Houston or this market or festival. We used to take sew out samples of our pantos. We would bring about 150 or 200 of them. They were actually quilt sandwiches. They were about, I don't know, this square, and we would have them hanging on hangers. It was a quilt sandwich, plain cotton fabric with cotton batting in the middle, and it was a sew out, a stitch out of the actual quilting design. When we had the design on the machine, we would just stitch out a bunch of the different designs and then cut them up, and then you had them on hand to show your customers, your client, or you could just look at them and see what that design looks like in real life in actual size. So those stitch outs were really, really helpful for people when they were shopping for the pantos, because they could actually see the actual result of using that panto. So I can't emphasize enough how helpful those were. It sounds kind of like a tedious thing to do, but they were really a big seller. For those of you who sew for people, the PDFs are really great for showing them the designs, but the sew outs also were really, really incredible. So I'm going to pull the camera in just so you can see some of these PDFs, and then I'm going to show you another tool that we could use. This one is called Lori's Spirals. This is one I looked at. As you can see, this one is very horizontal. This one is very, very horizontal. This one's called Turbulent Seas. This is one of the new modern designs. A lot of texture on this one, and this one would have been okay. I think the quilting design would have kind of been almost more textural than a design element. This again was Euphoria. We looked at that one online. Very horizontal again. And this is one that's in many ways very similar. Jessica's Vidalia. This was one I really thought was going to be the winner. I actually went as far as to purchase that one. And then when I came out and looked at the quilt on the frame, and I realized how horizontal this was, I just wasn't sold on it anymore. So it took me a couple more days to come up on it. So again, this is the one I ended up with, and I just like the way that these looked very multi-directional. Another really great way to test out designs, and this time with seeing it on the actual quilt, is using the Urban Elementz website. I do recommend logging in if you have an account, and if you don't have an account, just create one. The website will keep track of purchases you made, so you don't repurchase the same thing twice. Also, if you ever purchase something and you lose it because of a computer failure or something, you can always re-download it again, because it keeps track of your purchases in that way. But it's really great for that. I know many times I've almost repurchased the same thing, and it will tell me I've previously purchased that, so that's saved me time and money. The first thing I like to do is just click on Design Wall after I've signed in, and you can see here we're at the Design Wall feature, and it goes over the steps that you take to get the process to work. I'm going to go ahead and upload the picture of my quilt, and in my case today I'm just using the pattern cover because it was the easiest way to get the image. The quilt is actually kind of really big in real life, so it was hard to get a picture of it. So here is the image of the quilt that I'm doing. Some of these down here are a little darker than they are in real life. And my quilt also has a border, but that's kind of irrelevant. So I have the quilt on there, and this section here I could change the thread colors. And the other thing that we could do now is go through and select different quilting patterns, and I'm going to choose some that different people have recommended. First one I'm going to use is Quagmire. This was one that Patricia had recommended, and so I'm going to use this D for design wall. All we have to do is click on that, and you'll see that it is now here on the design wall feature. So we'll go to another one. I'm going to bring in late night again. We looked at this on the IntelliQuilter. Actually, I think I have the Grande. And again, we have the design wall feature here. We're going to click that, and that will take that to the design wall. And I can do one more. There's these. So I think I'm just going to go with Euphoria because it's a point. It's a point I'll make. So now I have 3 different quilting patterns. Here I have the option of changing all of the any thread color that I want to try on here. I used a blue. And you could change the brightness or darkness of it. So I'm going to choose this one first. I'm going to add it to the canvas, and you can see that my pattern is right here on the quilt itself. So you could put that where you want it, but also you can increase or decrease the size. Because I still have it highlighted, I can increase the intensity of the color there as well, or change the color altogether with my thread color. Now if you want to keep seeing what that repeat looks like, you would just keep adding it to canvas and do that over and over until you have enough of those on there that you could see pretty well what that would look like across the whole piece. And you can see pretty quick that this really does give you a really great idea of what this pattern is going to look like. So as I was saying before with the Vidalia, Jen's Vidalia, it was very horizontal, and this one's very vertical. And if you look at the pattern has these diagonal lines and these horizontal lines. So it's very multi-directional. But also if you look at the stars go off on every direction. Those are also very multi-directional. So I was looking for something that was more multi-directional in pattern. So I'm going to choose a couple of these. I'm going to just go ahead and add 3 of those just to start. And I think I'm going to go really dark here. But you can see how easy the program, the design wall is to use. It really doesn't take any time at all to figure this out. And it allows you to see. Now this one is a little bit more multi-directional, but I'm not really seeing that it's complementing the stars in any way. So I'm going to go ahead and clear those off and do one more. So I'm going to upload my image one more time. I have to hit browse first.
upload image. You could also take them off by hitting the delete, by the way. So I'm going to add this one to canvas and put those in here and make it more of an appropriate size. And I'm going to add more of these. It's actually kind of fun. It's almost addicting once you get started. You'd have to be careful not to spend your whole day on here playing with all the different quilting patterns. I'm going to add a couple more. These may not be an exact replica of the repeat necessarily, but I think it gives you a really good overall idea of what this design is going to look like. And what I really liked about this is, and it's something that Melanie had said when she chose it, she liked the straight lines in it, which represented the straight lines in the pattern, which there are a lot of, all of these diagonal lines and horizontal lines, and then all of the lines in the star itself. But also the fabric that I used was ombre confetti, and that fabric has a ton of dots on it. Some of them are metallic and some of them are just printed color, and she thought those circles really picked those up. Well, the first time I saw it, I really didn't like this design at all. I didn't think it was the ticket. But when I went back out and having looked at all of the other patterns that I had chosen, none of them worked, and I didn't realize why until I realized the multi-directional desire. Everything was either vertical or horizontal, and this was the only one that I saw that kind of matched the theme of it while being multi-directional. So as you'll see in the end, this is the one that I ultimately went with. But you could see just how amazing this tool is. Of course, it's free. You could load any of your photos up to do your own quilt with. It could be a pattern or a picture of your own quilt. You can save the image, copy the image. You could share it on Pinterest. You could share it as an email, and you could share it on Facebook so that you can get a group consensus, because you could do 2 or 3 variations of this and post it to your friends or on Facebook, as I said, and see which people prefer the most. And it's just a great option for testing out patterns. I'm going to go ahead and save this one. And I'm not going to save it on Facebook because it'll save it on my Facebook page. But after that, as I said earlier, you could just go ahead and hit delete on there for that, and it deletes the pattern from your collection. And I'm going to go ahead and clear it after that. But that is it for the design wall. If you wanted to, for any of these patterns, you could add that pattern right to your cart, or if you're at the design itself, you could add it to your wish list. You see here is your wish list. If you heart that, you can go ahead and add that to your wish list. I've already got this design, so I don't want to add it to mine. But also your wish list, once you get items on your wish list, you can also email that to people and they can purchase things for you on your birthday or a holiday. So the wish list is kind of cool too. So the next one I'm going to show is going to be out in the studio, and we'll get to that one. Or actually, I will have shown it in between the other two, these two, to break it up. We'll see which one I did.
as one might expect, I am also a member of a couple different quilting guilds in my local area, and my quilting guild has, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 mini groups. They go off into different branches. They have a little art group. I think it's called Twisted Sisters or something. And one of the groups they have is a machine quilting group, a long armors group, a machine quilting group, and it's called Design Divas. Now, it was called that long before I got there, so don't blame me. But the idea of the group is they would bring either quilt tops or quilts in, and they bounce ideas off of each other for designing patterns or what to choose for quilting pattern for a particular quilt. And one of the tools that they use, many of the members of that little mini group have, is this little plexiglass tool. This is, I got this at one of the big box do-it-yourself stores. This was already pre-cut to this size. I didn't have to have anything cut specifically for me. It was already cut. So it's just a piece of plexiglass. I would say it's about 1/8 of an inch thick. It was less than, I think, I don't know, maybe $25. But I'm sure you could get plexiglass at a lot of different places. But this is going to be used as a tool to draw on. I would highly recommend, again, to use a dry erase marker and not, no, I'm sorry, a wet erase marker, not a dry erase marker. The dry erase marker, if you got this the wrong way, it could wipe off on the quilt, and that you don't want, because that is hard to get out of the quilt then. If it's a wet erase marker, you have to intentionally wipe it off using water with a paper towel or something like the dry erase board cleaner. So I'll show you that in a second. I just put some tape, this is called that washi tape, on the front of mine, and also I'm going to put a sticker. I'm going to use the Tattoo Elementz sticker on the front of mine, and you can get one of these free in the mail. They have a couple different colors, and they either come printed on white or printed on clear, and I'm just going to show you how that goes on here. But I'm going to tell you the reason why I'm putting that on here. I want to make sure that I'm designating visually what the front of this plexiglass is. Again, it's because I don't want to transfer anything from the design onto my quilt, just in case somebody used a dry erase marker. I want to be able to see the front, always know that that's the front, and not have an issue with that. So if I have the flower and the tape on the top, I know that's the drawing side, and this also says Urban Elements or Tattoo Elements on it, so I can see the writing there. But you could do anything on here so that you know the right and the wrong side. One of the girls in the group had tape on hers, and it was really cool because the tape had, it was a measuring tape printed on the masking tape. I thought it was awesome. So she had that all the way around, but of course she didn't remember where she got it. So I'm going to show you how that works, the tattoo. Okay, so this basically is a decal in between two pieces of, one's a thin paper and one's a little bit more like cardstock. So we're going to peel the cardstock off of the back. Don't need that anymore. And then I can put this into position. I'm going to have it go right up here in the corner. And you can see in this particular case it's printed on white. You can see that white echo. Printed on white shows up better on clear or black items. If I were putting this on a white sewing machine, then printed on clear is okay. So all of our tattoos either come printed on clear or printed on white. This is printed on white, and you can see that this will show up. I'm not going to say a lot better, it will show up, period. If it was printed on clear, it wouldn't show up almost at all. So I'm just going to use something to burnish that a little bit. You could use a credit card, but I don't have one out. Then I'm just going to pick up the edge. And again, I'm putting that on there just as a visual so I can clearly see which is the top of the design. Now I'm going to show you how I would use it. Okay, so I have underneath my plexiglass one of my Panto designs that I have on hand. And I'm just going to roughly sketch this out on here as it is. I'm going to go ahead and do this off when the camera's off so I can do a neater job. But I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing, and I might even push it up and do a little bit more up here. But you'll be able to see when I get it done that the design will be on here, and then I can lay the plexiglass on top of the quilt and we can see the design. So I'm going to try and do a really neat job of drawing it without my crazy lines. As you can see, I've gone ahead and traced out a pretty good amount of the Panto on the design board, on the plexiglass, just so I could go ahead and see what that's going to look like on a quilt. Now, this is not one of the designs that I had in running for the design in the quilt in question today. It's just a design that was easy for me to draw out. And this is not the quilt that I'm testing it for, but it is one that was handy and small enough to get on the table. So you can see the design showing up on the quilt, and you can see what it would look like. In my opinion, this particular design is a little bit large for this particular quilt, but I didn't select it for this anyway. It was just a random pattern and a random quilt. But this is a nice way to see what an actual quilt pattern is going to look like on your quilt with the actual size that it's going to sew out at. So it's a really great tool for that. You can also use this for if you wanted to do some in the ditch and a little bit of free motion and combining a Panto. So you could do all kinds of little tests on here. You could also do some editing of a Panto on here before you get to your Pantograph grids. And also this is small enough that you could bring and do a little test while you're sitting on the couch watching TV. You could also just be playing with coming up with your own design if you wanted to do some free motion stuff. So it's a great little handy tool. A lot of the girls in the Design Divas group use these, and I'm sure other people across the country have similar use for these, or they have seen these as well. You can usually just use water and a paper towel to get the wet erase marker off of your plexiglass. Sometimes though, after you've used it many times, it starts to get a little bit of a buildup. For some reason, this Whiteboard Care, these happen to be like little wet wipes. I got them at a big box store. They also have this spray and the little mini spray. You could use these on there. They work really good for cleaning the plexiglass. I also use these to clean the rails on my longer machine. They do a good job of keeping the rails clean, and sometimes I even use a little bit to clean the wheels. They clean without being too harsh. So we don't sell this. It's just something that I use for those purposes. I also use this on my Pantograph grids to make sure that I'm getting all that dry or wet erase marker off of those as well. And now it's about time that I actually show you what we quilted on the quilt, what I quilted, what I chose. I've already told you, but I want you to see it. And I think you'll be happy. I was really happy. I was really happy. because this quilt is so big, it's almost 100 inches square. I can't really show very much of it at the presentation table. It really shows much better over here. So I was really happy with the way that the whole process turned out. I told you at the beginning I loved the fabric. That was the first thing that I did, was start collecting the ombre confetti, even though I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I've always loved ombre fabric anyway. And then I found the piecing pattern, and I loved it as well, until I found out it had Y seams. I know how to do Y seams, but not my favorite. But once I got into it, they weren't that bad. The pieces are really kind of big, so the Y seams are a lot easier to do. They're not little tiny pieces. So that went really well. And then once I found the quilting pattern, I really was psyched about it. And then the last thing was the thread choice. And when I was picking out the thread, I kept thinking maybe blue or lavender, and I had a friend over and I was talking to him about it, and he said, why don't you use yellow? And keep in mind, he's not a quilter, and so his color range would be like yellow, blue, green, red. That's his color names. So when he said yellow, my mind said gold. And so I went in my my thread drawer, and I pulled out a gold. And as soon as I pulled it out, I was like, why didn't I think of that to begin with? Because it has all these gold lattice in it. And the gold is beautiful. I love the value of it and the color of it on the quilt. And I've got gold in the front and the back. And I'm going to show you the back in a second. And then when the quilt started stitching out, I'm just absolutely in love with it. It's probably one of my favorite quilts of all time, because I love all the components of it. And the funny thing is, it's not a quilt that I necessarily want to keep for myself. I know I'll give it to somebody in my family, but I absolutely love it, and I think it's a quilt that universally most people would like. I think most people would think it's a cool quilt. So really happy with the process, but that's all the design steps that that it took to go through choosing the quilting pattern for this particular one. I'm going to flip it over and let you see some of the quilting on the back, because it shows up really good there. As you can see, the entire backing is ombre as well. It's also from the same fabric line. It's ombre confetti, 108-inch backing. There are no gold dots on the backing. I used this on as the border as well, and all the front had the gold dots, so I painted the gold dots on my border for the front, but I'm not putting any in the back. So that's it. That was all the steps for my design process, and that's just some steps that you could take, some tools you could use to help you choose a quilting pattern for your quilt. I hope some of that was useful, and I thank you for spending some time with me today. I look forward to seeing you again here in the studio, and no telling what we'll talk about then. Until then, look forward to seeing you. Take care of yourself and take care of each other, and have a good afternoon. Have a good afternoon.